So I'm sure it doesn't surprise many of you, but knife crime in the UK is a bit of a problem. And if you look at the stats, just for the City of London and just for victims under the age of 24, we've had, well, a lot more than one stabbing every day. In fact, I haven't added all this up, but it's probably 2 stabbings every day on average. I can't imagine what those stats would look like if you were including cities like Birmingham and Edinburgh or Manchester or Liverpool. It beggars belief, to be honest. And so it kind of blows out of the water this sort of argument you hear across the pond in the United States when you've got people who are sort of trying to regulate firearms, saying, oh, look at the UK, they have hardly any problems with them. And yeah, sure, we don't, but we do still have a problem with violence, because this is a sticking plaster, isn't it, really, when you regulate these things, because you're not actually discussing the real issues behind them. But let's look at what Derbyshire police think the solution is.
If we can help in any way, shape or form to get less knives on the streets, then we're happy to do that. It did take me by surprise, the variety. I just assumed that the majority would be kitchen knives, which there are plenty of, but there are a lot more dangerous knives than that I've witnessed today, so just hand them in, you really don't need them.
Yes, that's right. They had a knife amnesty. So what they're asking people to do, they're asking people to hand in their knives. I assume that they're looking at young people who are carrying knives and saying, bring them into the station. There's a couple of problems here, isn't there? Because obviously from a practical point of view, you're saying to people, carry a knife to bring it to this bin to get rid of it. Well, what happens if they get pulled over by the police on the way to the bin? You could say, well, okay, yeah, but in that situation we wouldn't prosecute them. Well, surely that means then that criminals who are wandering around can now say, oh no, it's all right, I'm just taking this knife to the bin. It doesn't make sense. But also, this isn't defeating a problem here. This isn't like firearms. You could almost make an argument for a firearm amnesty in the UK because they're not that freely available. And, you might have some old granddad who's got a shotgun left over from, before licensing came in or whatever, or some relic left over from the war and he's worried it's going to end up on the black market somehow. That would make sense. You can see how that could work. But knives, there's the obvious point. Nobody who plans on doing something dodgy with a knife is going to go and hand it in. But even if they did, then, there's still loads of knives around. There's knives everywhere. There's knives in their kitchen drawer. There's knives, in every shop. As long as they're over 18, or they know someone over 18 to buy it for them, or they can go online and they can pick up any kind of knife that they want. And this guy is like saying, I thought they'd all be kitchen knives, but, some of them look really scary. It's like, it doesn't really make any difference, does it? It's a sharpened piece of metal. It's going to do the same job, regardless of how it looks, So I really don't understand what they're trying to achieve here. And frankly, it's, it looks a bit like virtue signalling. But never mind, let's hear what they've got to say next.
What surprises me and a lot of people is the majority of the knives are quite simple knives. Knives that will be taken out of kitchen drawers, so people have got ready access to this. If you're found with a knife, we will arrest you. You will go into the criminal justice system, and that could lead to a prison sentence, or just as importantly, beyond that, it could lead to a criminal record that will stay with you for your life.
So this guy makes the point that most of these knives handed in are just normal kitchen knives. They're not special in some way or scary looking in some way. And, he's quite surprised by that. Well, it's like, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's not a competition for how something looks, is it? People in prison can make knives just getting a toothbrush and melting it and making it sharp so they can stick it in someone. How far are you going to go with this? What are you going to ask all the families of all the local kids in the area to empty their kitchen drawers and, put them all in the bin? Including, of course, dinner knives, because dinner knives can easily be sharpened so they've got an edge and you could use that to shank somebody or whatever. It's ludicrous and they're wasting time. It's like just virtue signalling. It's almost as if the police are kind of worried because, they're worried that politicians are going to look at them and say, look, you're not doing your job properly. Crime's rife in your area. What's going on? So they do this to try and look like they're doing something about it. But in reality, it makes no difference at all, especially with knives, because, like I said, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And then we saw the same thing in Scotland with the airgun licensing. there was a case of a baby getting shot or something. I mean, obviously it's a tragedy. And so their solution is to say, okay, well, we'll just license air guns. But of course, knowing that there are how many hundreds of thousands of air guns there will be in circulation, meaning that, you know, anyone who hands them in is somebody who probably wasn't going to do any harm with them in the first place, you know, when they have an air gun amnesty. And those that do want to do harm are just going to hold on to them. And you've got no way of knowing how many have been handed in compared to how many there are, because there's never been registration before. So it just makes no difference whatsoever. And you're still not even, you know, even if you did succeed and you did take all the knives away and all the air guns away, well, someone's going to start doing something else, aren't they? I mean, there's a million ways you can hurt someone if you've set your mind to it. Surely we should be looking at why these kids are doing this in the first place and trying to deal with that. And from the police's point of view, you know, maybe they should be asking for more stop and search laws, you know, ability to stop and search people in certain areas where there's a particular problem. Maybe they need to look at, you know, the availability of certain types of cheap alcohol in certain areas. I don't know, whatever. But amnesty just isn't going to, it's not going to achieve anything. Anyway, let me know what you think, because I'm out.